I am Eva Clark, and welcome to part 3 of our series exploring why your client's symptoms won't completely heal. Now, I bet you this one, your clients have no idea this one's getting in the way of their healing, but it is until you address it. So imagine this. Your client gets some strange numbing in his toes, ignores it, and a few months later, that numbing starts to creep up all the way to his hip. Now he's concerned, so he goes to the ER. The ER sends him to a specialist, and the specialist, pointing at this MRI scan as if he could read the future, says, "You have MS, it's a progressive disease, and you will probably end up in a wheelchair in 10 years. Your client is 28 years old. I kid you not, this has happened over and over again to my clients. Now, think of a different doctor. This one says, yeah, you have MS, but it's no big deal anymore. We have medications that keep it under control. It's very different than when it was in the 80s, so you're good now. Plus, your MS is so mild, it's not going to go anywhere. So just look, take this, and you're going to be fine." I had one client receive that message, and she's doing a lot better with this diagnosis. However, unfortunately, she's gone on social media, so that's also not very positive. So let me ask you this. Do you think, as a practitioner, that knowing the messages, the disease prognosis, what your clients received as a diagnosis of their symptoms might be important and might get in the way of their healing? A negative prognosis is a nocebo, the opposite of a placebo when you take a sugar pill and you get better because you think it's going to help you. A nocebo is thinking that something is going to get worse and actually making it worse because of the belief. It's actually more powerful than placebo. And we have to remember, placebos are 30% effective. So imagine how important it is to understand what was said at the time of the diagnosis and to address it. Another thing that can happen is not a doctor's diagnosis, but a self-diagnosis. I have many people, and you probably had a lot of friends who say this, I have a bad back because 30 years ago I helped my neighbor, take his couch out. Or a client or, a friend also will say this, well, I'm 50 years old, so of course I'm going to have bad back problems now, right? I think this weekend I was sitting with some people and everyone was talking about how everyone gets hip problems once they get older. And I'm thinking, cancel, 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 cancel. No, right? Those are just as much a nocebo as that diagnosis with the white coat. So what techniques do I use if I see or guess that there's a big limiting belief that is probably keeping the symptoms in place? Well, if it's the diagnosis, I treat the day of the diagnosis as a PTSD traumatic event, and I do the NLP trauma process. I then add to it the NLP decision destroyer in order to bring a whole bunch of resources for that day. And that way my client doesn't just swallow the assumptions of the doctor as if that is the truth. I also give my clients data. I show them studies and things which, in my case, I'm a specialist in MS, so I will show them that 60% of those diagnosed with MS will never progress. For people with, for example, back pains or knee pain or hips and such, I introduce them to the work of Dr. Sarno with his book, Healing Back Pain. In that book, Dr. Sarno says that actually, if you took an MRI on people that have no back pain, they will have just as many herniated discs and all sorts of things and burrs, bone spurs, and all of this as someone with back pain. And so he calls these herniated discs and spurs, etc., normal abnormalities, and says that they only hurt us when the body needs us to make a change. So here, if I think this is what's probably going on with my clients, what I will do is I will ask detailed questions about their pain or discomfort. Does it happen in the winter and in the summer? Is one worse than the other? What about at night, at work, when you're relaxed, in cold, in the shower? Tops of the feet or inside of the knee, right? You want to get as much information. Also, when does it never hurt? Will also give me a ton of information. And that'll help you start seeing what you really need to address. So, for example, your client's IBS, gut issues, doesn't flare up in the evening when they're watching TV, but it does in the morning. It does in the morning at work. All right. Thank you for being here at part 3 of our series looking at the diagnosis, prognosis, and how it can lock a symptom in place. I will see you tomorrow in part 4 when we will be looking at symptom loops.